Hello, my name is Ann Abbott from the Department of Spanish and Portuguese at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I'd like to talk to you about a process of deciding what graduate school program you might like to apply to. And this is inspired by my interactions with so many smart, capable undergraduate students who really haven't thought about graduate school, and once it occurs to them that, oh, I have a project I think I might like to consider pursuing in graduate school, they don't know how to go about it. They don't know what kinds of programs, what does that look like. So here's a process that is inspired by those students, but that I hope will be helpful to anyone who's thinking about graduate school. So step number 1 in the process would be to identify a big issue that interests you, a question, a thorny question that you keep coming back to, an idea, a concept, a problem, an obstacle that you go over in your mind. You find yourself thinking about it. It fascinates you, or it infuriates you that there's no solution to this problem that you have identified. Think about maybe these papers that you wrote for your classes when you were an undergraduate. Were there any papers that when you finished writing them, you said, I enjoyed thinking about this issue? Or you say to yourself, I barely scratched the surface. Maybe I didn't invest too much time in it, and now I see that I could keep going with this. There's probably another angle I could take, or maybe just going deeper and deeper, I could get to something here. Those moments when you are intrigued, when you are really mentally fascinated by an issue, those are those moments that you want to identify. Don't think about just the courses that you took. Think about the organizations that you joined, the causes that you promoted, all of those things that you felt passionate about, that you were thinking about, again, sort of on an intellectual level, analyzing it, and you didn't even call it analyzing. It didn't seem like homework. It didn't seem like coursework, because it was just something that interested you. Okay? Think about those big issues. And as an example, I recently spoke to one of my wonderful students, and I told her, when I think about you and the work that you've done and the things that you talk about, what I see is that you constantly come back to the idea of healthcare and how it intersects in this country with people who speak other languages other than English, and have different cultural perspectives. Right? So those intersections, that's what you always keep coming back to. And so that's that big issue that you are particularly engaged in. Now, once you have identified that big issue that really intrigues you, that you think about a lot, and that you would like to analyze, try to isolate a few smaller pieces of that bigger picture. So let's go back to our example about the intersections of healthcare, languages, and cultures. And just one possible example could be, let's say, natural disasters. In times of natural disasters, tornadoes, earthquakes, flooding, whatever it might be, these emergency responses by healthcare professionals, what do those look like in communities or with individuals who maybe don't speak English or limited English and have different cultural perspectives? That's just one smaller piece of that great big puzzle of the intersections of languages, cultures, and healthcare. Okay? So you might think of this too in terms of topic. When you had to write a paper in college or in high school, you had to come up with a topic. But you don't write about a topic. You write about a thesis. You have to come up with a smaller piece of that bigger topic and have to be able to have something incisive and to not be just totally superficial because your topic is so broad. Right? So we've gone from big issue to smaller piece. And the important thing about that smaller piece is, once you've isolated a few of those smaller pieces, for each one of them, think, could I envision myself working with this for a long time, for years? This is not to say that this is what you will end up doing as your project in graduate school, but can you imagine yourself in a position where you're exploring something that interests you, exploring it deeply, thinking about it from all different kinds of angles, trying to get at it from past research, but what has been missed by others? What are you seeing that other people haven't seen yet? If you can imagine yourself spending lots and lots of time mulling this over, letting it roll around in your head, talking to other people about it, being inspired by this problem, then you're on the right track, for sure. Okay? So you have your big picture question, problem, issue that you're interested in. You've isolated a few smaller pieces of that. The next step is to think about research and disciplines. What kind of research could you do to understand that issue better, to arrive to maybe some solutions to that problem, that big thorny problem that intrigues you or infuriates you? So when we think about research, we tend to think about laboratory research, and which is great. You can be doing things with test tubes. You can be doing things with microscopes. You can do all of those things, and maybe that's what you need to do to understand and work with that issue that interests you best. But also, let me just say that you can do all kinds of research. You can do literary research, which you do a lot of reading and you look for patterns and you are deconstructing the texts using theoretical frameworks. Historical, of course. Maybe you're going to dig into documents or artifacts and make your analysis, your historical analysis in that way. Maybe you need to do big surveys, or maybe there's the census. There's a lot of data that already exists, and you're going to mine that data, parts of that data, to come to some conclusions. Maybe you need to do surveys to large people. Maybe you need to do focus groups. Maybe what you need to do is, like anthropologists, maybe you need to go somewhere and blend in and become a part of a group or a community of some kind and let some of the questions bubble up from below. There's so many different kinds of research. Don't limit yourself to just thinking about laboratories or libraries as places of research. And at this point, you might need to talk to a faculty member or someone at least who has gone through a graduate school program and can talk to you about this, because you might not be aware of all the ways that you can approach that you can research that problem or that issue that interests you. So don't be afraid to reach out to professors that you had in the past and talk to them about this. So then now let's move on to step 4. At this point, you know the big picture question. You've isolated a smaller piece of that. You've thought about what kind of research, what kind of discipline might help you understand that issue best. And now it's time to look at programs. What graduate programs exist? Because don't start by saying, okay, this should be done in a Spanish program, this should be done in a linguistics program, this should be done in a nursing program. My suggestion to you would be to go to the website of a Research One university. Maybe it would be Stanford, maybe it would be Harvard, maybe it would be the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Those would be all good places to start. And simply take a look at a list of all the graduate programs that they offer. And from there, you should be able to dig a little deeper and see what those graduate programs are like. Don't assume that you know the program that would be best for you. There might be a new program that you don't know about. There might be an interdisciplinary program that could be the best fit for you. Take a look at some of these big Research One universities and find out how they are putting together programs and if your issue fits within one of those programs. I was interrupted, and now I'm coming back to this video several months later, as you can see from my hair, and I'm no longer at my kitchen table, I'm now in my home office. So let's continue with the final and fifth step of this process that I've been talking about, and that is to research possible mentors. So once you've found some programs that interest you, that you think that you would fit into well, or that your project would fit into well, it's time to look at the faculty members who are involved in that program, and you'll find that, of course, on the website for that program, for that university. Take a look at those professors. Take a look especially at their publications. Does the topic of their publications interest you? Are they publishing quite a bit? Are they active in their field? How many graduate students do they have working with them? One little thing to think about with the number of graduate students is that it's a balancing act. You want to work with someone who's very well known and who will give you a very good experience. And so if some faculty members are able to work with many graduate students and give them all a very good experience, and other faculty members might struggle with that a little bit more. So after you've finished looking at the faculty profiles, I would suggest also reaching out to some of the current graduate students in that program, working with that faculty member who interests you, and having a conversation about their own experiences and their tips and pieces of advice for you. So graduate studies are hard. They're challenging. Very few people in the United States actually get a PhD, or more obviously get masters, and you can start with a master's and then you can decide if you want to continue with a PhD. But I really encourage you to think about it. It's something that many students only come to in their senior year, when they should have applied to graduate school perhaps that year, but they're realizing later on what is the work that they're interested in. So if you can follow these steps, I think that you'll have a good idea if graduate studies are for you, and how to go about getting into a graduate program. Good luck, mucha suerte con todo, to all of my students, but to everyone who watches this video.